the whisper of legends in the far reaches of the galaxy. Stories traveled faster than ships. Some were about heroes, some about monsters, and some about humanity. The name human was spoken like a secret, a whisper carried through the stars. Many laughed when they heard it, saying it was nothing but a myth, a bedtime tale told to children, a story of ghosts from the past. But not everyone laughed. Some listened closely, their eyes filled with unease, because legends, no matter how old, often have seeds of truth, and this legend told of a race unlike any other. A race that once walked among the stars, a race that built fleets larger than worlds, a race that fought wars that scarred galaxies, and then vanished, leaving only silence behind. Generations passed, and the story of humans became weaker. World after world dismissed it, calling it foolishness. But deep in the archives of forgotten libraries, records still waited, buried documents written in languages most could no longer read, maps that marked battles that should not exist, names of ships that never belonged to any known species, and always the same word repeated again and again: human. On the planet Taralis, an alien historian named Virin worked in shadows. He had spent his life chasing fragments of this lost race. Most called him a dreamer, others called him mad. But in the quiet halls of his study, he pieced together the impossible. Every record, every map, every whisper pointed to one truth. Humans were not myths. They were real. Late one night, while scanning through broken data files, Virin's console flickered with a signal. It was faint, buried under centuries of noise, but it carried a rhythm that no natural source could make. It was not just static. It was a voice. A human voice, old, tired, but clear enough to send chills across his skin. "Remember us," it whispered. Before the signal faded away, Virin froze. His heart's pounding in his chest. He replayed the file again and again. Every time, the same haunting voice. It could not be faked. It was too raw, too ancient. He knew at once what it meant. The humans were out there, somewhere, waiting. News of his discovery spread like fire. Some dismissed it as lies, some called it dangerous. But rumors have a way of traveling where truth cannot. Soon markets, ports, and streets were buzzing with whispers. "Humans are real," they said, "and they are coming back." The Galactic Council held a secret meeting. Leaders of countless worlds gathered, their voices sharp with fear. They argued, they shouted, they demanded proof, but the proof had already arrived. Patrol ships near the outer rim had vanished without trace. Only shattered hulls remained, torn apart by weapons no one recognized. The same message was found on each wreck. 3 words burned into the metal: "We remember." Panic began to spread across the stars. Merchants canceled voyages, soldiers deserted, even the strongest. Empires trembled, because every race knew the legend. Humans were not conquerors, not saviors, but something more dangerous. They were unpredictable, they were unstoppable, and now they had returned. Virin sat alone in his chamber, staring at the sky. The stars seemed different tonight, brighter, closer, alive. He felt a weight settle on his shoulders. For years he had searched for the truth, and now the truth was here, heavy and terrifying. If humans had truly returned, the galaxy would never be the same. Far above, hidden beyond the rim of known space, engines that had not burned for 1,000 years roared to life. Colossal ships moved through the void, silent as shadows. Their hulls were scarred but unbroken. Their weapons hummed with power not seen for ages, and their banners carried a single symbol: Earth. The myth was no longer a story. The legend had awakened, and the galaxy, whether ready or not, was about to remember humanity. Asterisk the gathering fear. The news spread faster than light carried. From port to port, from world to world. At first, most leaders dismissed it, calling it a trick, a fabrication. But fear is not so easily silenced. Every whisper of humanity's return echoed louder. Every rumor sharpened into dread. In the far reaches of the rim, patrol ships continued to vanish. No distress signals, no survivors, only fragments of hull drifting through space. Each wreck bore the same chilling scar 3 words carved deep into the metal. We remember. No one could explain it. No one dared to try. Merchants abandoned. Entire trade routes. Colonies sealed their skies. Families huddled together at night, speaking in hushed voices. What if the humans come here? They asked, and no one had an answer. The Galactic Council gathered again, their great chamber filled with shouts. Some demanded fleets to search and destroy. Others cried for peace, begging to send envoys. But none could agree, because every counselor remembered the legends. Humans were not a race to negotiate with, not a race to defeat. They were a storm, a fire, a force that rewrote history. On Taralis, Viren felt the weight of his discovery. He had not meant for the truth to spread. So fast, now his name was whispered with anger and fear. Some called him a prophet, others called him a traitor. But he knew the truth was beyond his control. The humans were moving, whether anyone liked it or not. Then came the night when the sky itself changed. On a frontier world called Brask, the stars went dark. Something vast drifted into orbit. At first, the people thought it was an eclipse. Then they realized it was a ship. No, not a ship, an entire fleet. Dozens of massive vessels, each larger than cities. Their hulls gleamed with scars of ancient battles. Their engines burned with a fire unlike anything seen in millennia. Panic erupted. People ran through the streets, shouting the planetary defense. Fleets scrambled, hundreds of ships rising into the sky. But when they faced the human armada, their courage faltered. For the human ships did not move like machines. They moved like predators, circling, watching, waiting. Every alien commander felt it in their bones. This was not war. This was judgment. A single transmission cut through every channel. A voice, strong and cold, speaking in flawless galactic standard, we remember. The words echoed in every home, every station, every heart. It was not a promise. It was a warning. The Brask fleet fired first, desperate, terrified. Blazing beams of energy tore across the sky. For a moment, the defenders cheered as explosions filled the void. But when the smoke cleared, the human ships still stood, untouched. Then the armada answered. One volley, one terrible storm of light, and an entire fleet was erased in seconds. Not crippled, not scattered, erased. The people of Brask screamed. The council screamed louder, and across the galaxy, fear turned into terror, because now the myth was no longer whisper. It was fire in the sky, death in orbit, power beyond reason. On Taralis, Viren looked at the broadcast with trembling hands. He had sought the truth all his life. Now the truth stared back at him in fire and ruin. Humanity had returned, and they were not asking for permission. They were here to remind the galaxy what it had tried so hard to forget. Above Brask, the armada hovered in silence. Their weapons dimmed, their engines calm. They had destroyed the fleet, but spared the planet. As if to say, we could end you, but we choose not to. The message was clear. This was not conquest. This was a demonstration. And so the galaxy trembled, because if this was only the beginning, what would the humans do next? The first sight the galaxy had seen many wars, but nothing like this. Every report, every survivor's whisper spoke the same words. The humans have returned. Still, many refused to believe, until they saw it with their own eyes, on the border. World of Kareth, alarms blared across the skies. Defense fleets scrambled. Soldiers rushed to their stations. Children clung to their parents as shadows moved across the stars. At first, the people thought it was an asteroid belt drifting past, but the shadows grew, stretching across the horizon. And then the truth became clear. It was not rock. It was not debris. It was ships. not just ships giants of steel and fire. Each vessel larger than cities, their black holes scarred by battles no one remembered, their weapons glowing faintly, like predators baring their teeth. The stars themselves seemed to vanish behind them. An entire fleet of myths, alive, unstoppable, and watching. The Kareth commanders tried to stay calm. They ordered scans, demanded identification, but the readings made no sense. These ships did not match any known database. Their cores burned with energy older than the Council itself. Every reading screamed one word: human. Silence fell across. "The comes." Then one young officer whispered, trembling, "They are not a story. They are real." His words spread like fire, across every channel, across every home. The truth was undeniable. The myth had taken shape in the sky. The human fleet did not fire. Not yet. They drifted like giants, circling the world below there. Formation was too precise, too deliberate. Every alien soldier watching knew it. This was not exploration. This was a test. The humans were waiting, watching, measuring the galaxy's response. Panic rippled through the council chamber. Debates turned into screams. "Attack now!" shouted one. "Beg for peace!" cried another. But no one moved. No one dared. Because they all saw what had happened to Brask. One volley, one storm of fire, and an entire fleet had been erased. If they attacked now, it would not be just ships that burned. It would be worlds on. Kareth, the alien fleet gathered, thousands of ships in perfect lines. They thought numbers would bring courage, but when they faced the human armada, courage crumbled. Because the human ships did not look weak. They did not look ancient. They looked alive. Their engines pulsed like beating hearts. Their weapons hummed like thunder caged inside steel. And when the first human ship opened its combs, the voice was clear and cold. "We remember." Words shook through every ship, every soldier, every soul. It was not a threat, not a plea. It was a statement. The humans remembered what the galaxy had done. The wars, the betrayals, the attempt to erase them from history. And now they had come to collect the debt. Kareth's commanders panicked. One fired a warning shot, desperate to show strength. A beam of light cut across space and struck a human vessel. For a heartbeat, silence followed. Then the ship emerged from the blast, untouched, its hull glowing faintly, as if laughing at the attempt. And in that moment, every soldier of Kareth knew they could not win. The humans did not reply with fire. Not yet. Instead, one ship broke formation, drifting closer. It was larger than the rest. Its hull black as night. On its side, painted in white letters, was a name none had spoken in centuries. Terra's Wrath, a ship of legend alive once more. Varen, watching the broadcast from Taralis, felt his heart stop. He had read about that ship, buried in forgotten archives. It was said to be the flagship of humanity's greatest fleet, a ship that once silenced entire wars with a single strike. And now it floated above Kareth, very real, very alive. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. Children stopped crying, soldiers stopped breathing. For the first time in living memory, the myth had a face. The humans had returned, their fleet had arrived, and the galaxy understood a terrible truth. This was not the beginning of war. This was the beginning of judgment. Asterisk the human return. The galaxy had no more excuses. They could no longer laugh at the myth, no longer call it a child's tale. For now, the humans stood above them, their fleet dark and silent in the void, and with silence came fear. A fear that spread faster than any weapon, faster than light itself. On every world, screens flickered with images of the human armada. Some wept, some prayed, and some cursed the stars. Children asked their parents who these beings were. The elders only shook their heads, for they remembered the oldest words. If humanity rises again, the galaxy will tremble. In the great chamber of the council, voices fought like wild beasts. Strike them now before they strike us. One shouted, "Send emissaries," begged for peace, cried another. But every eye turned toward the holoscreen. There was no need to debate. The humans were already sending. Their answer, a transmission lit across every system. The voice was deep, cold, filled with weight like mountains. "We left the galaxy once," it said, "but we never forgot." The words rang in every heart. In every home, the humans remembered. They remembered betrayal. They remembered war. They remembered how the galaxy had tried to erase them. On Kerith, the Armada moved. The colossal ship, Terra's Wrath, broke through the formation. Its engines burned brighter than suns. Its shadow stretched across continents. The defenders of Kerith stood frozen. Every weapon pointed at the human flagship, but no one dared to fire, because all knew what would follow if they did. The humans spoke again, their message sharper, heavier. "You hide what is ours." The voice thundered, "The artifact you guard belongs to Earth." Gasps filled the council chamber. They knew exactly what the humans meant. For centuries, the council had hidden away a relic of the old wars, a device said to hold the knowledge of humanity's greatest empire. A weapon, a key, a crown, no one was sure. But it was something powerful, enough that they had buried it in secrecy. And now the humans had come to claim it. The counselors argued, their faces pale, their voices cracking. "We cannot give it to them," one whispered. "If we refuse, they will destroy us," another said. But deep down, they all knew the truth. This was not a request. It was a demand. And behind that demand was the firepower to erase entire civilizations. On Turalis, Varen watched the chaos unfold. He pressed his hands against his console, trembling. He had spent his life searching for the humans, and now they were here, demanding. What the council had stolen, he felt both awe and dread. For if the council refused, the galaxy would burn. But if they obeyed, what would the humans do with such power? On Kerith, the silence was shattered. The human fleet began to shift. Weapons came alive. Glowing with terrible light, the defenders felt their courage shatter, for every weapon was pointed at them. And then the voice returned, colder than before. "We do not ask twice." Across the galaxy, panic spread like wildfire. Worlds rioted. Citizens screamed in the streets. Old stories resurfaced, tales of human wars told long ago. Armies that turned suns into weapons, fleets that tore empires apart. The legends were no longer just words. They were alive, reborn. And every alien child who once laughed at the myth now stared at the skies in terror. The council tried to stall, tried to send empty promises. But the humans did not reply. Their silence was worse than fire. Their silence said more than words ever could. And the galaxy knew humanity was not here to negotiate. They were here to reclaim above Kerith. The fleet began to move. The colossal. Shadows drifted closer. The ground shook as their engines roared. Every eye lifted to the heavens. Waiting, fearing, trembling, the humans had returned, and the age of myths was over. Asterisk. The council trembles. The Galactic Council had faced wars before. They had survived invasions, rebellions, even plagues that tore across the stars. But never had they faced this. Never had they faced humanity returned. The chamber was filled with fear. Every counselor shouted over the other. The great hall that once echoed with pride now trembled with desperation. Maps flickered in the air, showing the human fleet circling Kerith. Their shadows stretched across entire continents. Their weapons glowed like captive suns. "They demand the artifact," one counselor whispered, his voice shaking. "If we give it, they will grow stronger," another snapped. "If we refuse, they will erase us," cried a third. Voices crashed against each other like thunder. But no decision came, only fear, only trembling. Hidden truths began to rise like smoke. One counselor confessed that the artifact was not just a relic. It was something stolen. Long ago, when the humans first vanished, the galaxy had believed them gone forever. And in that absence, the council looted what was left behind: weapons, ships, and the artifact, the greatest secret of all. They buried it deep beneath the surface of Verith Prime, a world guarded by fleets, locked away in silence. And now the humans wanted it back. The chamber fell silent as the truth spread. Every counselor felt the same chill. The humans knew. They had always known. They had not come blindly. They had come to reclaim what was theirs. Meanwhile, above Kareth, the human fleet tightened its grip. The ships moved in perfect formation, not a wasted motion, not a flicker of weakness. They did not speak again. They only watched, and waiting was worse than fire. Waiting was worse than war. On Taralis, Varen sat alone in his study. His hands shook as he read the intercepted messages. The council had lied for centuries. They had hidden the artifact, fearing the return of humanity. But the truth could not be buried forever, and now it had come back in the form of steel and shadow. Across the galaxy, soldiers deserted their posts. Worlds sealed their skies. Merchants abandoned entire star lanes. Everyone felt the same question clawing at their hearts. What would humanity do once the artifact was theirs? The council tried to send a response, apply for negotiation, a promise of compromise. But the human fleet gave no answer. Their silence weighed heavier with every passing hour. Then, without warning, one ship moved. Terra's Wrath, the great flagship, drifted closer to Kareth. Its weapons shimmered with light. Its shadow swallowed the stars. And the people below screamed. The council erupted again. "Send every fleet we have," one shouted. "They will destroy us all if we resist," another argued. Back and forth, fear eating them alive. And in the middle of it all, one truth stood tall. The council was powerless. Their words meant nothing against the storm that hovered above them. Far away, whispers turned into prophecies. Some said humanity would bring order to the galaxy. Others said they would bring only fire and ruin. But no one could deny the truth. The council trembled, the galaxy trembled, and above it all, the humans waited, patient as predators. Finally, the council gave a desperate order. They would send envoys. They would send gifts. They would beg. But even as the words left their lips, every counselor knew it was too late. The humans had already decided. The humans had already chosen their path. Above Kareth, silence broke. A new message cut across every channel. The voice of humanity, colder than ice, heavier than stone. "You stole what is ours. Return it or burn." The council fell silent. Every leader stared at one another. For the first time in living memory, the rulers of the galaxy had no power, no control. They trembled like children before the storm. And the storm was only just beginning. Asterisk, the fire in the sky. The galaxy had seen wars, but never like this. The council stalled, the worlds trembled, and still the humans waited. But waiting was over. The fire was about to begin. Above Kareth, the human armada shifted. Engines roared like thunder. Weapons lit up with blinding light. The sky itself seemed to burn as hundreds of colossal warships locked into formation. Every alien watching knew this was no bluff. This was power, raw and unchained. The defenders of Kareth gathered their fleets. Thousands of ships rose into orbit. Their captains swore they would fight, but deep in their hearts, fear ate at them. They had seen what happened to Brask. They knew numbers meant nothing against myths made flesh. The battle began with a scream of light. Alien fleets unleashed every weapon they had. Missiles, plasma, energy beams streaked across the void. For a moment, it looked as if the humans would fall. The sky lit up with explosions, fire spreading across the stars. But when the smoke cleared, the human fleet still stood. Their shields flared like suns. Their hulls shimmered with ancient strength. Not a single ship had fallen. Then humanity answered, one volley. One storm of pure devastation. Railguns fired with such force they split moons in half. Plasma storms swept across the battlefield, erasing ships in seconds. Entire formations were torn apart before they could even scream. Alien commanders shouted in terror. This is not war, it is slaughter. But even in their fury, the humans were not reckless. They did not target civilians. They did not burn cities. Their fire struck only the fleets, only the strongholds of the Council. It was a message, written in flame across the stars. We can destroy you, but we choose when. On the surface of Kerith, people cried and prayed. The night sky was filled with burning wrecks falling like meteors. The ground shook with every explosion. Children covered their ears, hiding from the roar above. Yet no human fire touched their homes. No beam struck their cities. It was as if the humans wanted them to live, to watch, to remember. In the council chamber, despair broke into madness. Some shouted to surrender. Others screamed to keep fighting. But no one listened anymore. Their power was gone, their fleets erased. The humans had spoken through fire, and fire was the only language that mattered now. On Taralis, Viren watched in silence. His chest ached with both fear and awe. He had searched all his life for humanity. Now he wished he had never found them. For he understood what the Council could not. This was not conquest. This was judgment. The humans had returned not to ask, not to beg, but to remind the galaxy of its sins. Above Kerith, the flagship Terra's Wrath moved forward. Its weapons glowed brighter than ever. Its shadow swallowed fleets and continents alike. And then the final message came. Cold, sharp, undeniable. This is mercy, the voice thundered. Next time, it will not be. Silence followed. The alien fleets were gone, erased from the sky. The humans drifted in formation, victorious, unbroken, unstoppable. And across the galaxy, billions realized the truth. This was not the end of war. This was the beginning. For if the humans could burn fleets with a single strike, what would they do when the Council defied them again? The fire in the sky had spoken, and the galaxy had no choice but to listen. The end of myths, the battle was over. The skies above Kerith burned with wreckage. Thousands of alien ships lay shattered, drifting like broken bones. And yet the human fleet remained, untouched, unbroken, unchallenged. Across the galaxy, silence spread. Every world that watched the fire in the sky now bowed its head in fear. The legends were true. The myths had taken form. Humanity had returned. In the council chamber, the rulers sat frozen, their voices gone, their power stripped away. For centuries, they had called humans a story, a ghost, a lie. Now the ghosts had come back, carrying fire in their hands, and the council trembled like children before them. On Kerith's surface, survivors stepped out into the night. They looked up at the heavens. The stars were hidden, swallowed by the colossal shadows of human ships. Children asked their parents if the humans would destroy them, but the parents had no answers, because even they did not know. Then a transmission, cut across every world, every channel, every home, the voice of humanity, deep and thunderous, filled the galaxy. The age of silence is over, it declared. We remember what you tried to bury. We remember what you stole. And now the age of humans begins. The words struck harder than any weapon. Empires that had ruled for centuries shook with terror. Races that had once laughed at the myth now fell to their knees. And in every corner of the galaxy, hope and fear twisted together. For some believed the humans would bring order. Others believed they would bring only ruin. But all agreed on one truth. The galaxy would never be the same again. On Taralis, Viren stood at his window. The stars glowed faintly above him. He remembered the first whisper, the first voice that had said, "Remember us." And now the galaxy had no choice but to remember. Viren felt tears on his face, not from sorrow, not from joy, but from awe. He had searched his entire life for this moment. Now he wished he had not, for the truth was heavier than any legend. Above Kerith, The flagship Terra's wrath loomed. Its engines hummed like thunder, its weapons glowed with restrained fury, and its banner Earth's banner shone brighter than the stars. It did not fire again. It did not need to. The message was already written in fear. The council bent. Their leaders bowed. They swore to return the artifact. They swore loyalty. They swore survival. But the humans did not answer. Their silence was the answer, for silence from humanity carried more weight than 1,000 threats. In the weeks that followed, across every world, a new word spread. Not myth, not legend, but law, the law of humanity, the law written in the fire above Kareth. And so the galaxy changed. The whispers of old stories faded. The laughter of doubt vanished, because myths end, but humans endure. And with their return, the galaxy had entered a new age. The age of myths was dead, and the age of humanity had begun.